Gwen from Savannah 2. Today I'm sharing 2 cards that I created as well as some tips, new and old, but either way these tips help me when I'm crafting and I thought I'd share. I'm also linking up to the Sav Challenges of using up my stash, and we have a featured fan. Kaylin also used up her stash for this video and card. Be sure to check out that link to see her creation. And so today I'm using the Welcome Wagon and Welcome Die for my cards. I have 2 sets of new neighbors, and I'm going to use the Project Life Coral Edition for my card base. Now, I don't use Project Life for scrapbooking. I always use it for cards because I absolutely love the designs, the patterns, and the journaling cards where there's space to journal. I use those as my highlights on my cards. So that's my first tip. My second tip is that when you're using a die like the Welcome die that I'm using, the right hand side, the gray one, works really well, but on the coral you have to really turn your paper to get a complete die cut of this word, and that's not really hard. But my tip, here's the real tip, is that if you flip your die over, you can see that the die is a little larger than what will be cut. So technically, if you see in this photo right here, there's only a little bit of the E that's cut off. So it's not really a big deal. So when you're laying out your die, just know that it's a little bit bigger than the word will be. Or you could technically die cut the word and out of scrap paper and use that as your what would you call it, your prototype, and just use that to work around on the piece of paper that you're using. So that's 2 tips that with the second one I've never even thought of till just now. Awesome, Sav. Okay, so anyway, as I was rambling, all you missed was me creating my card. I'm just pulling out pattern papers and deciding how I want to do this. I'm making them really simple. That's another one of my challenges, is making a simple card. And I pulled out my pink circles because this little tag would be perfect as a little embellishment on the side. So I'm just trying to figure out what papers I want to use and which ones designs match best. So, oh my goodness, I just love these papers. Okay, so now I'm going to cut these little strips. Okay, I don't know if you noticed, but I saved all of my scraps, and that's what those are. Just little slivers, less than 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bigger. But I use them on my cards all the time, so don't throw away anything. Tip number 3, or whatever number we're on. Okay, so what I'm doing is, now these Project Life cards can be flipped over. They have 2 different sets of designs, but they're using the same image, but I've decided to use it horizontally, just like this one, and I'm just cutting up my card like normal. And because I'm doing it twice, I marked both cards, and now I'm going to attach my card base. I decided that I wasn't going to use the journaling card as the base. I want a white background, and so I'm just using up some scraps, and I cut my card bases. Done. This card really is quick, but the video is long. So I've got my little journaling cards, I've got my little pieces that I'm going to use at the bottom, and I've got my little tags that I've cut, plus my die cuts, and now I'm just deciding where I want to stamp my images. Now I've got a sentiment to the neighborhood. I had to think about what it said. And it's one long stamp, and so what I'm deciding to do right now is to attach the little strips at the bottom so that I can stamp my sentiment without any interference of trying to move everything later, if that makes any sense. You gotta be in Sav's brain to understand what I'm doing sometimes, but it really works in the end. So my tip is, lay out your design and then attach your pieces at the bottom. I like to work from the bottom up, so that's my tip. What you might have just heard is Olsen climbing under my desk. it's about ready to thunderstorm, and he's a little nervous. Nothing like a little interruption. Anyway, let me focus back to my video. Okay, so what you might have seen me do is I was going to attach my die cut to the top of my card using glue, but then I decided I'm going to use a little bit of foam to attach that. Give it a little bit of dimension. Clean and simple cards don't have to be real simple, like just stamp, ribbon, done, Travis. They can have a little dimension, so I'm going to use foam for the die cut. And I'm going to mask my sediment. I decided that I'm going to move it. And here's what my 4th, 5th tip, whatever number I'm on. What I do is I put my sediment down and I attach all my other stamps and die cuts to the top of the acrylic block. Now, this might not be easy to do if you have lots of elements, but because I only have 3 things that I'm adding to my card, I lay it out on the acrylic block before I stamp, so I know where I'm placing everything. And I'm masking that long sediment, so I'm leaving enough space in between the house, the sediment, and my die cut sediment when I'm stamping. So it really does help. My tip is to just put it on top of the acrylic block to see where your design is going to be. Now when I'm masking, I have a tip for this as well. I wipe off my stamp and then I wipe it with a baby wipe and then I wipe it off with a cloth. This prevents any excess ink on your card. Ask me how I know. So this tip is very helpful. Again, I lay out everything to make sure that I have enough space. And I've done it to both cards. Success. And literally, the card is going to go quick from here. I'm just adding a bit of foam tape to the back of my die cut sediment. And I use very fine tip scissors to cut my foam. And now I'm just going to lay it on the top to see if I like where it's at. And I do. But I forgot I needed to stamp my house. Now, when I'm stamping, I don't like to stamp over foam because you just can't get a firm image transfer. And so I don't attach my sediment. Oops, my little band-aid came off. I don't know if you noticed, but I have another injury on my finger. Oh my gosh, I am so random. Here's a real quick tip. I like to use scrap papers to stamp on, and I like to use the exact same scraps that I'm using on my card, because if I just stamp on white, it doesn't really show what it looks like. So stamp on some scrap to get the right ink color match, whatever. And this is a random conversation today, but I don't know why when I'm using my heat gun, I swivel it back and forth, or I move it back and forth, but what are you gonna do? Okay, so this just went real quick, but I told you this card is real quick, but when I'm using little foam pieces, I also add a bit of glue to the back of the foam. It really helps adhere it because there's 2 pieces of adhesive to attach it to my card. So that's really the end. I know I spoke like super fast. I gave tips like out of order. Olsen came and interrupted me. But I hope that you are inspired and that these tips really do help you as you craft. I also hope that you will join in the fun with the Sav Challenges. Please leave a comment below with a link to one of your creations or link up to our Inspired by Virtual Smooches post. I'd love to check out your project. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.